Good evening, UK Crime Book Club. Delighted to have the author of The Silent Daughter, Emma Christie, with me. And I've got loads of questions for you. Hi, Emma.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good as well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. Happy to have you. So we need to thank Annabelle from Edgar for introducing us. So thank Annabelle for watching. So many things. I'm going to start with you.
It's breaking up a bit, Samantha. I'm not really hearing you.
I'll tell you about silent about Well, that was a good start.
You're back. I can't hear you, but I can see you.
You can't hear me?
No.
Wonderful.
I can read your lips.
Okay. I'm going to try refreshing my screen. Let's see if that helps. So bear with me a moment. Can you hear me now, Emma? Can you hear me? No.
Strange.
Okay, this will be interesting. So, can you tell us a bit about The Silent Daughter, if you can? It's a really good start. Can you refresh your screen again, please?
I can't hear you.
Can you refresh? Can you refresh? Right. While I refresh the screen, I will show you the lovely cover of The Silent Daughter, which Emma's got up on the wall behind her. She has. So this is The Silent Daughter. It's Emma's debut, so we get to ask her all about that. If we can get her back to do it. So I'm going to read the blurb to you. I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. So deceit runs in the family. Chris Morrison is facing his worst nightmare. His wife is in a coma, his daughter is missing, and the only thing more unsettling than these events is what might connect them. Some secrets can change your family forever. So again, there's the cover. Do you know what you're going off to buy? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yes, yay. So I've just given a little cover reveal for you.
Excellent.
And just read the blurb from the back. So let's get started. So you were waiting on a delivery of your books this week. What happened?
Yeah, so I was waiting for the box of books to arrive from the publisher. I was supposed to be going home to Scotland for the book launch. And then because of the quarantine rules, I decided to stay in Barcelona. And so at the last minute, my publisher had to send the box to Spain instead of home. And so I was waiting and waiting. And finally, the day before my publication date, a huge box arrived. And I was like, wow. Well, if it's the day before my publication day, I'm going to wait until tomorrow. So I left it in the sunroom, and the next day I got up, and then there was like another small package that had a couple of books. So I kind of opened the first book, and I just was quite happy with that. So I didn't actually open the big box until that evening, and couldn't get it open. Was turning it upside down all over the place trying to get it open. And when I finally did, there were no books. It was, in fact, a bouquet of flowers from my publisher, which had been sitting for more than 24 hours upside down in my sunroom. So the flowers did not do well, I have to say. And I still don't have any books apart from this one. So
At least you've got one, though. It's a good start.
yeah, it's good. Yeah,
So
better than nothing.
champagne that's in your hand.
What, sorry?
I bet you have some champagne as well.
It's breaking up again, unfortunately.
Okay. I was just saying that there was a bottle when you were unpacking the box.
There was.
That champagne?
Yeah, a bottle of Bolly, which is chilling in the fridge because I turned 40 on Monday, so I'm going to open it on my 40th birthday. So seems like a fitting occasion.
It does. So are you going to be like the Queen? Are you going to have 2 birthdays, one here, one in Barcelona and one in Scotland?
I think so. I think at least 2. Because we're only allowed to have gatherings of 6, aren't we? So I'll need to have several gatherings, I think, to celebrate it.
No, that sounds like a good excuse to buy more Bolly.
I think so.
So what led you to living in Barcelona?
Various reasons. When I graduated from university way back in 2002, I moved to Barcelona. And that the decision for that had actually come in 1999. I was backpacking all around Europe, doing the Interrail. And I'd been to like loads of towns and cities. And then we were due to fly back. I had a resit exam at university. And the day we were due to fly back was the day that the Concorde exploded in Paris. Do you remember that? 1999 or 2000.
Yeah.
And so all the flights were cancelled. And the only place I could get a flight home from was Barcelona. So we had to leave France and go to Barcelona, and I flew over from there. So we had 12 hours in Barcelona in 1999. And basically that was what convinced me to move there as an adult. Once I graduated, I was like, that's where I want to be. I just loved it from the very first moment. I just loved it, and I've not lived here since then. I was here for a couple of years, and then I travelled quite a bit, and then I moved back about 5 years ago, and it's just great. I just think it's a fantastic city. It has mountains, it has sea, it has culture, it's got great restaurants, and it's easy to get home as well, which is a bonus.
Yeah. So how long has it been since you've been back in Scotland?
I think I left Scotland in 2010. So when I quit my job
to visit.
Oh, the last time, all right, to visit. I haven't been home since February.
So yeah, long time.
Yeah, and usually I come home. Usually I go home every couple of months. So it has been a long time. I'm hoping to get back next month, if possible. I'm trying to find a place to quarantine.
So you've had different jobs, but things that have involved writing. So what kind of things have you done before you started writing The Silent Daughter?
Well, I was a newspaper reporter for 5 years up in Aberdeen, and I covered all sorts of stories. I did crime, I did court, I did local politics, local government, and I also did like visiting grannies on their 100th birthday, visiting newborn babies on New Year, all that kind of stuff. So I did that for about 5 years, and then when I left the newspaper, my idea was to go freelance. So I worked for a couple of years for a coffee magazine called The Coffee Universe, and that was actually great fun. I learned loads about coffee, and that kind of paid my rent basically while I was writing fiction, and I've not done much writing work apart from those two things, to be honest. I mean, the way that I earn money when I'm in my sort of other life is working as a tour guide, which again is a seasonal job that I can do on and
Yeah.
off depending on how much writing I have. So
So Caroline's telling me that I'm coming across as hoping. It's like normal Emma Minecraft Sam apparently. So as long as you can hear me, then I don't mind that. I can be
yeah,
Minecraft. That's fine.
yeah, you're a bit Minecraft actually. That's a good description.
It's okay. It's a good look for me. It's fine. So tell me about the countries that you've travelled to, and have you lived in any other countries?
Yeah, I've traveled a lot actually. I mean, basically, I'm really bad at traveling because what happens is I go away, and as soon as I get somewhere that I like, I just stay. And so I never make it very far. So I lived in Mexico for about 6 months at one point. And when I was there, I worked. I wasn't writing actually. I worked as a field assistant on a project that was studying bats. So I spent my nights in the jungle
Okay.
catching bats for about 6 months, which was interesting.
Quite
Um,
unusual.
yes, I would say so. It was amazing. The wildlife that we saw was just like wow. So maybe that'll creep into one of my novels at some point. Um, and then I lived in Guatemala for 4 months. And one of my early manuscripts that I tried to write was based in Guatemala and Mexico. And it was looking at the drugs wars that sort of blight that area. And then after that, I moved to Nicaragua, which is just a wee bit further south than Guatemala. And I was there for about a year and a half. And at that point, I was sort of writing more or less full time. In fact, that's where I was when I got my agent, because I finished the first manuscript and I connected with Caroline Hardman and she signed me while I was in Nicaragua, and I think she sent me a fax to confirm it because the internet was rubbish and I think it's the only faxed contract in recent history. And it was an amazing country, really, really fantastic. And for me, I loved, working really hard, but then at the weekends I had this amazing place to explore and totally different culture. I found it really inspiring for my writing.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
We've got a question from, it just says Facebook user, so I'm not quite sure who it's from. Did Emma always have a desire to write fiction, and what was the tipping point that pushed her to finally pursue taking the idea to the finish line? And did the day job in journalism help with getting the words down?
Um, do you know, I think being a journalist helped me in a lot of ways. But I think ultimately it made me realize that I didn't want to be a journalist because I was writing all day, every day, but I wasn't being creative at all. And I would get home at night and try to write something that was creative, and I was just kind of done writing. And so I eventually, in my very last year at the paper, I got a promotion, and I was a chief reporter, and I really enjoyed it. But I just thought, now that I've started getting promoted, I know that you know nothing's really going to change. I'm just going to become a boss, and then I'm going to become my boss's boss. And if I don't kind of make a change now,
Yeah.
then I might never make a change. And so I think it was getting the promotion kind of ironically spurred me into leaving. And also I was about
Yeah.
to turn 30. I was 29 when I got the promotion, and I thought, big year next year, turning 30, sort of, I don't know, that kind of happened, and everything just came together, and I thought, this is just something I want to try. I'd always wanted to try writing a book, and so initially I said, okay, I'll try for 1 year. And then that turned into, well, it's been 10 years until I've actually managed, but worked out fine in the end, I would say.
I would wholeheartedly agree. Kaz wants to know, do you speak Spanish, and where is your favourite place that you've travelled?
Yes, I do speak Spanish. I didn't speak any whatsoever when I first moved to Barcelona back in 2002, but because I've lived over in Latin America for probably like 4 years, for 4 or 5 years, I'm fluent more or less in Spanish. And also when I'm tour guiding, I'm working in Spanish all the time. The favorite place I've traveled, do you know, I would say, I mean, I love Latin America, but a more surprising answer might be Bulgaria. I went on holiday to Bulgaria and also fell in love with it and stayed for 4 months. And do you know, it is the most surprising place. Everything about Bulgaria exceeded my expectations. The food, the scenery, the people, the architecture, everything. It was an amazing place. It's definitely the most surprising place I've ever traveled to. And I basically only went because when I was about 12, one of my mum and dad's friends gave me a book about the monasteries of Bulgaria because I like history and medieval things. And, oh, you might like this book. And ever since then, I'd had this sort of romantic image of Bulgaria in my mind and wanting to see these medieval monasteries, and then ended up being there for 4 months, and it was fantastic. So really great country.
We didn't start with an introduction to The Silent Daughter, so do you want to give us a little taste of what it's about?
Yeah,
anyone
of
who's
course.
not read it yet.
So it's set in Edinburgh, and it follows the story of a newspaper journalist called Chris Morrison. And it starts with him discovering that his wife has had an accident. She's in a coma and she's in Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. So he phones the family, and his son Mikey comes to the hospital, but his daughter Ruth doesn't pick up the phone. She doesn't answer emails. And little by little, we realise that Ruth is missing. And so the story then follows Chris as he tries to investigate and find out what has happened to Ruth, and see if there is some sort of connection to what's happened to his wife as well. So it follows those two stories. And there is another narrative that's a sinister voice that we don't know who it is, and that's sort of dotted throughout the book.
I did like that. I'm not going to say anything else about it, but yeah, I found that really drove me on to figure out what on earth was going on. So yeah, I did like the separate bit at the beginning of some of the chapters. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. We've got a few questions that we were given before we went live, so from the promo video that people had watched. Philip Jordan wants to know. Oh no, that was Philip Jordan, right? Okay, that was Philip Jordan's question, the one that we asked about the journalism help get words down and what pushed you to finally, getting the novel done. What's it like being a debut? Because you've got another website going as well, haven't you? Another group for debut authors.
Yeah, I mean, this year, I think it's probably always quite difficult to be a debut author, because we're out there against all the big names, and, this year especially, I know quite a few writers who have not even made it into the bookshops because their book came out just at the moment when the lockdown happened. And the good thing to come out of this is that the debut authors, we've all sort of grouped together and we're trying to find ways to promote ourselves. And so I joined the group a few months ago. It's a Facebook group. And I came up with this idea to have a little festival, because another thing as a debut author, you're trying to get a spot at a festival or in a review place or in the papers is more difficult because, again, nobody knows who you are. So I thought, well, if no one's going to invite us to their festival, let's make our own festival. So I was on holiday at the time in a camper van, but somehow over the course of the summer, from the back of my camper van, I managed to put together this festival, and it's going really well, and we've had fantastic participation. And all the other authors that are involved are, just brilliant. And for me, it's been amazing to get to know them all a bit better. We're sharing our stories about, the different ways that we found our agent, the different ways that we found, got our publishing deal and things. It's really interesting and inspiring, I think, because I think for people who are new writers who are not yet signed or don't yet have a book deal, you can see that there's no one way for it to happen. There's a multitude of ways, and it's encouraging to see that other people feel the same as well, in terms of doubts and paranoias and things, So it's been really, really positive for me, and I think for everyone involved to group together and make this festival, which is called Diary of a Debut Novelist, over on Facebook, if you're interested.
You definitely are. You've got the right crowd for it. Kaz is saying, we know that feeling, don't we, Sam? Yeah, we did we started our live events with a festival, and Harrogate was cancelled. So we were just, how can we get, get some publication? So it came from Caroline's dad, who handed it to Caroline, and then somehow we all got roped in, and here we are, 6 months
Fantastic.
later or however long, and still doing it. So it's been lovely knowing that we're helping to sell books. Is just the best thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's
and I get to talk
fantastic.
to people like you, which is awesome.
Great.
So, Kaz also wants to know what inspired you to write crime.
Do you know, my time as a news reporter, I worked on a lot of crime stories, and it was it was like a totally new world to me. You know, actually finding out about the lives of people who had committed crimes, but also, you know, the families, their families, and the families of the victims. I don't know. I found that part of my job really fascinating. I originally studied law at university, and I had the idea of being a lawyer, but I abandoned that after a couple of years. But I've always had an interest in, you know, courts and things. And so for me, like being the crime reporter and the court reporter was really fascinating. And so I suppose it was a natural step in some ways to write about it. But I think for me, it's always just been really important, you know, the stories behind these crimes, you know. And I remember there's a few cases that I worked on as a reporter that really stayed with me, and I just quite often find myself thinking, what actually happened to that family or to that you know, young woman now, you know, 10 years later, are they still in the same situation, or what's happened? And I think in some ways it's my way of processing a lot of the sort of difficult things that I saw when I was working in court.
Yeah. I think it definitely comes across, you've learned a lot about people. That comes across really well, because all of your characters feel real. They don't feel like somebody's just written a story. They feel like this thing's just happened to my friend. And I think that's such a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think for the heart of anything I've written has always been the characters. And in fact, to the point my agent's like, yeah, fantastic characters, but you know, you really need a story, you know. So I'm like, right, okay. And you know, I think I do find people and observing people fascinating, and obviously as a journalist, every single day I was going into people's houses and interviewing people and seeing 100 different lives and ways of living, and it's always just been very fascinating. You know, I think it made me realize very quickly that my own life, while everything seemed just like normal, this is just the way things are, I soon realized that's not the case. People live drastically different lives from mine. And yeah, it was really, really interesting part of the job. Just, and I think as a journalist, that's something, it's a very sort of privileged position. You get access to people's lives, you know, that you would never normally have access to. And often at their most challenging moments, you know.
Yeah, Kaz also wanted to know, and I can't find the question, I've just been looking for it, what it was like to be published on a day with so many other authors. I mean, that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, and there was a lot of media build up about, you know, the 600 books in one day. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of debate about it. And, you know, I don't want to criticize publishers or anything. I think if you look at the breakdown of the books that were released that day, you know, a lot of them were academic books, a lot of them were hardbacks or cookery books and all these things. And obviously we're all vying for the same space on the shelves. But in terms of people who are actually going to go out and buy a psychological thriller, there probably wasn't that many more to choose from, apart from the one that sold 45,000 in the first week, which by Richard Orson. But you know, I mean, I don't know if you saw the song that I wrote about it. Did you?
I didn't. No, I've missed it.
Oh, if you look at my Twitter account, I've got it pinned at the top. I wrote a song called 600 Books One Day. And it's a little bit of a light-hearted look at it. Because ultimately, I think, you know, when I get to this stage, you know, I've been writing and editing for years. Yes, it's disappointing there's so many books coming out at the same time. Will it make a difference to my career? Probably not in the long term. Who knows? but I kind of feel like the main part of my work is done, and it's down to the publishers and the people who do the sales and promotions and the public to decide where it goes next.
It might even work in your favour, because a lot of people will have been looking at what the 600 books were, because it's so unprecedented. So you never know, all publicity is good and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kaz has asked, because you like history, would you ever be tempted to write historical crime?
Well, I've often thought about it because I'm a total history geek. Like I love history. When I dropped law at university, I studied medieval history instead, and English literature. And then my like final year thesis was all about medieval literature. I mean, like no one has any interest in ever reading it, but I loved it. I kind of have thought about it, but I'm I'm not sure because I love having the two things separately in a way. I read history for fun and enjoyment, and also because I'm a tour guide, I am always wanting to learn more and learn different facts about the things that I talk about. But I don't know. I would say it is a consideration, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't set it in medieval times. I don't think. I'm very interested in more modern history in Spain, sort of 30s and 40s when they had the civil war and the dictatorship. I find that period very interesting. But I think there's so much research required, for a convincing historical novel, and I'm not sure at the moment if I want to commit to that. But you never know. Never know what will happen in the future.
Pat Adams, right, who's one of our author members. Hi, Pat. She's sounds interesting. I hope to be there. If not, Emma, how does it feel to be a newly published author?
To be honest, it feels very strange because I'm not at home, and I've only got one book.
Yeah.
So I've not seen it in the shops. I've been really lucky. My publisher's been fantastic, and managed to get me into the supermarkets and the bookshops, and so I keep getting bombarded with photos when my friends and my family go to the shops, and it's just bizarre because I can't quite believe that it's my book because I haven't seen it there. But I think it's good in a way because it's helping me stay totally calm and a little bit distant from it. I mean, obviously, I have a few moments where I just think, wow, like I can't quite believe it after sort of 10 years of trying and failing and trying and failing and failing some more. It is really a strange sensation. But I think it's also very true. A few writers have said this that I've spoken to. It's almost like as soon as one sort of dream comes true, we sort of shift our focus and look at the next one. So I'm already thinking, oh, I wonder how many I'll sell, and I wonder, when I'll finish the next book, and I want, it's almost like I need to stop and just go, this is good. I'm published, and I think I keep kind of forgetting to do that, which I mean it's amazing, and I hope my story would inspire other writers because I mean I have had a lot of rejection over the past 10 years and I finally got here. I mean it's amazing, the power of perseverance I think is never to be underestimated. And if you told me 10 years ago that this would be happening and that I'd be get interviewed as well, by you and all the sort of media attention, it's totally it's a bit overwhelming I think when I stop and think about it too much. So maybe that's why I'm just thinking about other things to keep my mind calm. I don't know.
You mentioned then photos that family and friends have sent you. I saw a cracking picture from one of your friends who kind of had like the book halfway over her face and this massive grin.
Oh yeah, it's Mary down in Brighton. That is a brilliant picture. And she had it on her mobile and she had the book. Yeah.
That was it. I was trying to think how it was in two places at once and I couldn't remember what the other bit was.
Yeah. No, so they're down in Brighton and so she's read some of my earlier works that haven't made it. So she's delighted. In fact, they were the very first people to pre-order the book.
Wow.
Yeah. So as soon as it came online, they were like, bam, and they got the very first copy. So that was
Then I'm
great.
glad we gave Mary a mention because it
Yeah,
sounds like she
exactly.
deserves one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who gave you the inspiration to write the book? Is a question from Pat Adams Ryan.
Do you know, I think this book just came from having this character in my head for so many years. And,
Mm,
I've written other stuff in between, um, but I've never been able to shake off this one character. And I finally, I started to write The Silent Daughter 2 years ago. And I thought, I need to get this character out of my head. And the
yeah.
only way to do it was to sit down and write, even though I wasn't really sure where it was going and how it was all going to work out. But I mean, I think that's the magic of writing is, some writers do it in a very organized way with chapter planning and all that kind of stuff. I would kind of love to be like that, but unfortunately, my brain doesn't really work that way. So I just sit and write. And I'm very strict in terms of the number of words that I write every day. I write minimum
All
2,000,
right.
2,000 words a day, minimum. But I don't plan what I'm going to write. I just sit and write and see what happens. And it's really a bizarre process sometimes. I just think, how did I think of that? When my dad finished the book, he said, I don't know how you think of all these horrible things, Emma. I said, I don't know either, Dad. It just kind of, it's obviously just there, and needs to get out somehow. So,
And you
interesting
dedicated
process.
the book to Mum and Dad, didn't you?
Yeah. My mum and dad have
How
been,
did
sorry.
how did they feel? How did they feel when they get this book that's dedicated to them, knowing how long the daughters worked for?
Yeah, they sent me a wee message and said they were feeling quite emotional when they got it because they had no idea. But they have. I mean, they've been so supportive of me because, I think when I announced 10 years ago that I was quitting my job, I was just starting to do quite well. And I
Yeah.
was like, actually, I'm going to quit my job, leave my flat, and move to Mexico to write a book. Do you know, they just kind of went, all right, dear. And sort of didn't try and talk me out of it, which was great of
Mm.
them. And despite all the failures over the years, they've been so super supportive of me, and have never sort of suggested that I give up, which has been really important for me.
Mm.
And I'm delighted. I'm delighted they've both read it and enjoyed it as well, which is a relief.
So you were saying that you're working on the second book.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us anything yet, or is it too soon?
I can tell you that it's based in Edinburgh again, and Portobello, which is the wee seaside community of Edinburgh. It will also involve a news reporter. But other than that, I probably can't say too much. It's in a fairly early stage, and I wouldn't want to give too much away in case I change things around and reveal something at a different time. But yeah, it's going to be the same style, a sort of psychological suspense or thriller, and hopefully it won't be too long before we can see it in the shops, maybe a year or so.
So we've got more questions on the feed here. Caroline Maston wants to know if you'd make a graphic novel of The Silent Daughter. She loves
Oh,
graphic novels. It's a favourite question.
do you know? I've only ever read one graphic novel, and it was by Alison Bechmel. She's an illustrator, an American illustrator,
Okay.
and I was very skeptical about it, but it was so good. I was amazed. So who knows? That would be very interesting if someone tried to do that. I don't know how that would work. Like I don't know who would create it. Probably my publisher would have to try and contract someone that did it, but I'd be happy.
Kaz would be thrilled. She absolutely loves it. So, Kaz said, Bats Travel Drug Trade sounds like an epic pandemic lockdown style novel. Would you write about the lockdown?
I think I would avoid writing about lockdown myself. I mean, lockdown for me was actually quite timely because it was just at the point where I was doing my very, very final edits. I had a pretty positive experience. You know, I was well and all my family was well. But I
Yeah.
think for so many thousands of people, their memory of lockdown and of COVID will just be so bad. You know, so many people have really suffered. I mean, I think the setting
Yeah.
could be very interesting for a novel, but I'm not sure it's a time that a lot of people are going to want to sit and read about. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I know some people are writing about it. You know, because the situation of having people locked in a house or a city or a you know a block of flats is a great setting, but I'm not tempted at the moment. I think I would rather write a medieval book than a lockdown book.
She also wants to know, can you recommend any other awesome debut novels? Now, you've just been introduced to a lot of them
Mm.
through
Yeah,
your other book group.
yeah. I mean, there's in terms of crime, I've read a couple of really great psychological thriller novels recently by debut authors. I don't know if you've read Little White Lies by Philippa East.
I've not, it's on my to be read pile, but I
Really,
tend
really
to
good.
just have to stick to the Author Chat books
Yeah. Well, it's very,
for the
very
best
good.
part. So, yeah.
And also, I just finished All in Her Head by Nikki Smith, which is such a good book. I really, really enjoy that. The characters in that are fascinating. Um, Another one for it's not strictly psychological thriller. It's kind of between genres. Is If I Can't Have You by Charlotte Levin.
I've just realised that I've got that here on my shelf, and normally it would be on the top, but I'm reading it, so there you go.
It's very good, isn't it? Really fantastic voice. Um, So, I mean, those three are the three that I've read recently that I loved. The one that I really, really want to read at the moment is The Man on the Street by Trevor Wood, which is
Trevor
set in
Wood, yeah.
Newcastle. Yeah, so I haven't read that, but that's a definite one that I'm looking to read soon, I would say.
Yeah, Trevor's a member of the book club and very, very popular. Very chatter,
Yeah,
shares
he's a lovely
lots.
guy.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot. He's good at getting the word out there, definitely.
Mm, yeah, he's
There's
a
no
great guy.
forgetting his name. When you hear the man on the street, you just know Trevor Wood.
Yeah.
You just remember. It's everywhere. The man is everywhere. In a good way. Hi, Trevor. So, Kaz is saying normal service has resumed. Nice to see your face, Sam. Hi, Kaz. So hopefully I'm not pixelated now, and I can finally hear you properly. So fingers crossed that carries on happening.
Good.
Pat Adams Wright has asked, how long has it taken the book to come to fruition? So you said about 2 years. How much of that was writing? How much was editing?
It's hard to tell because I'm a tour guide. You know, I go away for months at a time. So I know it's 2 years since I started it. I would say writing time is probably 6 or 7 months in total, but divided up into sort of smaller chunks. And the editing was done really within 3 or 4 months in total. So even though it spanned over 2 years, you know, I was working a lot during that period, and you know, probably for several months I was away on the road. And when I'm working as a tour guide, I don't even take my computer with me. I can't do both things at once. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, total, I suppose it was actually a year of working on the book, and then a year of paying for my life so that I could continue to work on the book. You know, so earning money for half the
Yeah.
time and writing for the rest.
So what other countries have you been a tour guide in?
Well, I mainly work in Spain, but I also work in Portugal and France, and sometimes Greece, and sometimes the UK and Ireland. But mainly in recent years, mainly Portugal, Spain, and France, which are all fantastic countries.
So what kind of tours do you give?
My tour company is based at small groups, so sort of maximum 22 people, and it's very much focused on education. So they're classed as educational tours, and it's for dedicated to lifelong learning for people who are retired who want to continue learning, and so we do lectures in the morning. So it's very very focused on education. We have like an hour and a half in the morning, lecturing on whatever we're going to see, and then we go out and visit things. It tends to be more off the beaten track places. So it's great. I mean, I also work with a couple of traditional tour companies that do the big tours to all the main sites, but I much prefer smaller tours, smaller groups, smaller locations, and just feels more authentic to do that.
So one of the things that you mentioned to me in an email was, I'm going to be careful to read this correctly, social media as a means of deception. I'm going to let you just discuss that without me.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the themes that comes up in The Silent Daughter is the way that we use social media to present a certain image of ourselves online. And I think everybody, if they're honest, everybody lies a little bit online, and I mean, I see it a lot when I'm working as a tour guide. You've got a couple who've been arguing all morning and just narky and not interested, and then like you take a photo and they're like beautiful smiles and popping it on Facebook, having the best time ever. But and those kind of thing, and the grumpy teenagers that are not listening, and then they do the selfie and things. But I mean, I think anyone, especially when you're traveling, I think there's this sort of feeling that you need to present an idyllic image of where you are. You're in these beautiful places, and I think we all want to present the sort of best version of ourselves online, and so often it's clearly not the case. You're either doing something for the camera, or you're deliberately trying to sort of mislead people for all manner of reasons. I mean, I think sometimes if we go on social media, if we're feeling a bit down, we just want someone to pay us a bit of attention. It can be something as simple as that. Or if you feel like you're hard done by, you want someone to agree with you. But I think in The Silent Daughter, what I try to do is see how far we can take it, in terms of what the way I present myself online, or the way people present themselves online. How little do we how little we question that. I look at how little we sort of question the lives that we see online. I'm trying not to give too much away.
No, I know. Yeah, I was a bit surprised when I read that in the email. I thought, okay, I will just literally read that snippet and let you go for it.
Yes.
Kaz wants to know, how much research did you need to do for Silent Daughter? So I'm presuming that you know the area that you've written about quite well.
Yeah. I have a wee flat in Edinburgh. So I've lived in Edinburgh, and in terms of the street layout and the feel of the place, I didn't really need to do much research. There was a few wee bits that I had to check. But Edinburgh, I'd say I know really well. And in terms of sort of other things in the book, I did have a bit of research, for I spoke to the police about certain aspects of investigations, and I spoke to some other sort of experts in their field about other issues that come up in the book. So I did and also I read a lot online as well, and did my research. So I wouldn't say the research was in any way overwhelming. It was all very interesting, and I was able to see some areas I needed more research than others. But I do, as a journalist, it's very important for me to be accurate. I learned that very quickly working for a newspaper, that if you're not accurate, then you're not taken seriously. So yeah, the research was definitely a part of it, but I really enjoy that part. So it wasn't daunting.
Which leads on to Jill Marsh asking, does the research ever scare you?
Do you know what scares me is that people are going to look up my Google history and see what I've been Googling. That's the scariest thing. Like, what? Sometimes if I'm at home, I say, Mum, like, if this comes up on your search, don't worry, okay? So no, I think I wouldn't say it scares me. I think I think when I was working as a news reporter and I was getting insight into how sort of chaotic people's lives can be, that kind of frightened me in a way, because I think I was so naive. I didn't realize that, just how bad some people's lives could be. I found that reality, very sort of overwhelming. And I mean, I suppose all of that time at the newspaper was in some ways research for my novels, because it's all in there, and the new one that I'm
Yeah.
writing as well. There's definitely some echoes of my journalism career there, definitely. Just these stories that I keep kind of going back to in my mind, and wondering what happened to that person.
Yeah. Kaz thinks that all of our authors, we should create some sort of document that they all sign to confirm that they are an author, just in case they're ever involved in a police investigation. with the browser history. I was going to ask, my favourite question is always, what have been your most memorable moments as an author so far? You've discussed loads of them. Is there anything that stands out for you?
To be honest, I think my most amazing moment since I started writing was when I was signed to my agent. And I think it's easy just to think the book deal would be the first one. And obviously, getting the book deal was like, wow, like absolutely amazing. But I think getting my agent was the first time that anyone who actually works in publishing and actually knows about books said, this is quite good, and I think that meant so much to me. Because at that point, I've been writing for a couple of years. I had no idea if anything that I was writing was any good or was publishable, or if I was just wasting my time. And to have someone like Caroline Hardman, who, she's a really great agent, actually say, I'm gonna work with you. I would say that's my massive highlight. And then the other one would be the day I got the book deal was fantastic, actually, because by coincidence I was going to visit my parents that day, and they were on holiday in Tenerife, and I was flying over for a couple of days just to see them, and I was at the airport in the car park when I got the news. You've got the book deal, and so I went to the shops on the way to their apartment and got champagne and all these things, and walked in with a bottle of champagne in hand, and broke the news. I mean, that was amazing as well. And I think again that is just sort of the validation, because it's one thing that's very different about being a novelist compared to a journalist is that when you're a journalist, you write a story and the next day it's in the paper, and you get that instant validation and instant sort of satisfaction. Whereas with a novel, it's 10 years of writing stuff, and then eventually something you write is good enough to be turned into a book, and it's like it's a totally different process mentally, to deal with the rejections and to deal with the time it takes, so those sort of two key moments of validation were amazing, really amazing.
So I keep looking behind us both, the cover of The Silent Daughter. Was The Silent Daughter always the title? Was it your title? And what say did you have in the cover? Because the cover's perfect.
The cover's brilliant.
Such a unique cover.
Yeah, no, I love it. So it's not always been called The Silent Daughter. It's had numerous different titles over the years. But The Silent Daughter, I think, is perfect. I think picking a title is really hard. And I think the previous titles I had just weren't quite right for the genre. They sort of fitted, I thought, with the book, but didn't quite work with the genre. And in terms of the cover, my publisher was actually really great. They allowed me to have quite a big say in it. They had a design company come up with quite a lot of different covers, actually, and we sort of whittled it down to 4 or 5. But when this one came through, I immediately said this one, and my agent as well, and everyone just knew when this one came in that it was the right cover, and the colours of it are great, and I'm super happy with it. And I feel really grateful that the publisher allowed me to have a say as well, because I think a lot of publishers
Yeah.
don't. And I know quite a lot of writers who really don't like their cover as well, or don't like the title. And yeah, I mean, I feel really, really lucky in that respect, and in many respects, actually. I mean, Welbeck has been a fantastic publisher. So, yeah, I'm really pleased with it.
That's brilliant. So would you ever, is the next book a standalone? Would you ever write any series?
The next book is probably a standalone. Yeah, I mean, I think I always when I think of new stories, it's always sort of newsroom and news reporters and journalists are the sort of key characters, and so sometimes I think I could potentially write a series, but I don't know. I'll see how it develops. I'll see how it develops. It depends on the characters, and it's funny when you work with a character for so long. For me, anyway, I become really attached to them, and it was actually really, when I got to the end of The Silent Daughter and sort of sent off the very, very final draft, I thought, oh, I'm kind of going to miss them. Kind of glad I never have to do any edits again. But
For now.
For now, yeah. But it's a funny thing, the relationship you have with characters. And I think it must be really lovely in a way to have a character that you can carry on through lots of books. So I mean, it would certainly be something that I would consider, and then to see how that character grows over different books. It could be really interesting, actually.
So how much has social media played a role in obviously telling people that you're published?
Yeah.
And just getting sales for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm like fairly new to social media. I've always been someone who I would kind of use it if I had to. So I used it a lot when I was traveling because I was at the other side of the world, and it was easier than sending lots of emails. And when I'm on tour as well, working as a tour guide, it's easier just to sort of send, post one photo and people know. But I've never been a huge social media person, and Caroline, my agent, has sort of encouraged me to use it a bit more. And then when I got the publishing deal, they said, would it be good if you have an Instagram and things. And I didn't even have these apps on my phone because I just instinctively wasn't a huge fan. But actually, turns out I really like it. And so I'm having really, I think the most surprising thing is I've met so many great authors. And, all these people that I've connected on Twitter and on Facebook and on Instagram, and the people that I would never have met. And it's been really lovely, helping people promote their books, and, and having people speak about mine. And it's just a really great community, which I absolutely did not expect, I have to say. And then obviously launching the Diary of a Debut Novelist Festival. I mean, without social media, that would be impossible. And it's been amazing, the response from total strangers who've signed up to that. And, that's great for all of us that are involved in it. And in terms of The Silent Daughter, again, I mean, being on programs like this one, and, pictures from friends getting put on social media and things. I think it's really important nowadays. And I think there was some statistic I saw recently that said, 5% of readers write reviews, but what most people do is share online or on Facebook, or even just word of mouth. And I think it's social media has just become so important for people expressing what they like and what they don't like. So it's been amazing to see my book cover pop up on other people's Facebook feeds and Twitter feeds and things. It's really, really strange. And I think, when I started writing 10 years ago, social media wasn't really so popular. Certainly not everyone had a smartphone 10 years ago, I don't think. It's grown more and more and more, I would say, since over the past 10 years since I started writing. So I probably wouldn't have expected to use it as much as I do, but I actually really like it. I probably now use it a little too much, in fact.
I was just going to ask that. Does it get in the way of your 2,000 word a day writing spree? Is that all in one go, by the way?
Yeah, I do. I do sort of 4 or 5 sessions all at once, and I usually do 450 or 500 words a session, and I switch off internet and social media when I'm writing. So I usually get that done fairly easily. But I have noticed, certainly the 2 weeks, the past 2 weeks, when building up to the launch of my novel, and also launching the online festival, I've been using a lot of social media, and I've really noticed my writing was kind of getting pushed to one side a wee bit, and I sort of had to stop myself this week and say, okay, the writing is really absolutely the key thing here. I think it's quite easy to get lost in social media, because there's so much going on all the time, but in fact, just this morning I deleted the Twitter and the Facebook app from my phone. So I will still use it, but I'll use it from my laptop, and that sort of restricts my use a wee bit.
I used to do that, and then I got involved with an online book club, and no, I can't. I don't even look at my own friends and family things most of the time. It's all, what's everybody been reading now? What's everybody up to? So we are almost out of time. That hour is really flown.
Totally flown past. Yeah.
So I am going to ask you to, I'll show the cover and get you to give everyone a little recap of the book. But I'm also going to suggest that your publisher from now on, when they send you a lovely gift, have to write on the side of the box, books or not books. So they don't have to spoil what's inside, but at least you can take it in from the sun.
Yes, I know, what a disaster that was.
Have you at least put the champagne in the fridge?
Yes, it is there. It's waiting for one day. Yeah.
So I'll show the cover, and it's behind you as well. We've got Malcolm Hollindrake says hi. Somebody said love the cover. Lots and lots of love for the cover and for the book, which is wonderful. So give us a final recap.
Yep. So The Silent Daughter is based in Edinburgh, and it follows the story of a news reporter called Chris Morrison as he tries to track down his missing daughter. And this happens at the same time as his wife has an accident. She ends up in a coma, and he's trying to see if there's some sort of connection between the disappearance of his daughter and his wife's accident.
So for anybody who hasn't read it, go out and buy it. I gave it a 5-star review. Very, very tricky one to write a review about, but focused on some of the bits that I could. But fantastic. It's from early on, you can't really talk about it, which that must be. I'll just ask you this quickly before we leave. How quickly is it? How tricky is it to talk about your book when you can't talk about it?
Yes, it's quite tricky, and I'm always really paranoid that I'm going to give away some aspect of the book, which is vital. But little by little, I'm learning. I think there's enough in this book that we can always find something to talk about, and it's quite challenging. But the cover is a great talking point, I think, and the Edinburgh setting, and the newspaper setting as well, which I can talk about for hours and hours. So there's always a way. I'm always a wee quite relieved when live events are finished, and I think another one, and I've managed to not give anything away. So
I know that feeling very well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on an absolutely cracking debut.
Thank you so much, and
seems
thank you very much.
It's taken a long time to get there, so
yeah.
Thanks to all the members and admins for joining us, and thank you, and I hope you come back when you finish your next one.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thanks to everyone who's asked questions, and hopefully you'll enjoy the book. I'd love to hear what you think.